Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. And as you can see, why is the screen filled with 10 candles? What's that got to do with 5th edition? Well, the reality is virtually nothing escapes the orbit of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition today. So today I'm going to talk about 10 candles, and I'm going to talk about Matt Colville. I'm going to talk about Jennifer Kretchmer. Okay? All right, so Matt Colville, he's one of these people who has become very wealthy, right? I should say very wealthy, who's become wealthy standing next to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. All right, which I love. I actually I don't have any actually my only my only bones is there are people who think that Matt Colville is an independently wealthy person. He and Matthew Mercer are not independently wealthy. They've made their wealth standing next to 5th edition. My only beef is that people deny that and that they don't really admit that. I wish they'd just be more open and say, "Hey, I really owe my career to 5th edition," which I think is the case for both of them. So Matthew Colville, huge name in the hobby, in and big name in the D&D Dungeons and Dragons community. He brought on Jennifer Kretchmer. I am fascinated with Jennifer Kretchmer. So Jennifer Kretchmer, I think she's the only person who I think she is a creator in the Dungeons and Dragons space. She does more than that, but she has created I think she specifically wrote something for Candlekeep Mysteries. So she is to my knowledge, she is a bylined Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition writer. Right? And I think she's done some things beyond that, but as far as I know, that's by far her biggest claim to fame, because that's a huge claim to fame in any tabletop role playing. It's actually, let's not pretend, it's the pinnacle of all. You could write an entire tabletop role playing game, and people would question whether you made it, and it could do well, and people would still question if you had more success than if you had a byline on a single D&D 5th edition source book. Right there, you go. And that's where Jennifer Kretchmer is. She's made her bones. I know her name because of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. I love one of her positions. She's got to be the only person on the planet who rolls harder against Session Zero than I do. So Jennifer Kretchmer brought out this completely fresh take on Session Zeros and said openly, even after she had written for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, who had just introduced Session Zero, that Session Zero was generally people listing their traumas, and that dungeon masters who had Session Zeros were often just having people talk to them about their traumas and weren't in a position to actually help people with those traumas or manage them. And so the the actual Session Zero could be traumatic for the DM, the players, or both. Fascinating. I love that take. I never heard it from anybody else. I I detest Session Zero. I think they're complete. I I think they're a waste of time. She says it's far worse than that. They're actually socially destructive, right? Like it's incredible. So so Matt Colville brings on Jennifer Kretchmer, and they do a video called, and she does on his channel a video called "Games You Might Like," right? And so then they present 10 Candles. Now, right here, this is 10 Candles website, right? It's made by Calvary Games, and you can see it right here, tabletop role playing game. It says tabletop role playing. 10 Candles says tabletop role playing game, literally on page one, right? So let's talk about 10 Candles. So this is the opposite of me recommending a game. I'm going to give you reasons not to play 10 Candles. I really dislike this game. So I read this game cover to cover about 2 years ago, and I'm going to admit to you, I blasted through it. It was fascinating. So it's less than 100 pages long, and it is very well crafted. Um, as far as a product, we're going to talk about it being a tabletop role playing game in a minute. But as far as like a PDF to read, it really I didn't I blasted through it. I just absolutely blasted through it. Okay, so I read it very quickly and I was really fascinated by it. When I got out the other side of it, I didn't think much of it, right? Because I told myself I will never ever in my life play or run this game. Okay, and here's why. It's not because it wasn't compelling. It's not that it didn't have an exciting story. It had two things I detest. Here we go. Number one, candles. This game, you're gonna be shocked when I show this to you. All right, so this is right from their site. Look, candle, 10 candles, candle. A bowl. So this is what you need to run this game. And I can't believe people don't talk about this more. But like, here's a candle. Here's 10 candles. This is a bowl you use to burn things during the game. Quite literally, you burn them. Okay. This is ashes in the bowl, right? Here's people with 10 candles around, like, and so okay, let's get into this. All right, this is showing them play the game, and you're like, oh, and you need a lighter. This game requires a fireproof bucket, a lighter, and 10 candles, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? So here's the thing, right? I hope y'all. I'm not going to explain what a Luddite is. I'm going to expect that everybody here knows what a Luddite is. I'm the opposite of a Luddite, right? Now, what does that mean I am, right? So first of all, um, I'm gonna set some language here, okay? The opposite of a Luddite is a technophile. It's 2022. I'm going to state this now. Nobody can use file for anything going forward. I love language, but when you use language, you got to realize when language has to be retired. The word, the suffix, the second part of a word, I think it's a suffix. No, no. So you could say cinephile, technophile, right? Lots of because this file is attached to one horrific word that has been in the news for a ridiculous amount of time, and people are hyper concerned about legitimately. File has to be gotten rid of. So I'm replacing it going forward with stan. Stan means to really like something. I'm a techno stan. Okay, I'm the opposite of Luddite. I'm a techno stan. In my opinion, you have to be out of your mind to have any open flame in your house. I know tons of people do this. I know this is a Scott Garibay thing. Almost nobody agrees with me on this. I do not. There are no open flames in my house if you're not cooking a meal, right? Like, and I have an incredibly, I, there was never a point where I told my wife, hey, you can't burn candles. She's like the rest of humanity. Like, she likes to have candles, right? So I never ever said, hey, you can't have candles in this house, right? When she puts a candle on, I will go in and check the room it's in every 15 minutes to just see, oh my gosh, is our house burned to the ground, right? I'm like I know fire I think firefighters are the same way. Like, I am not comfortable around open flames that do not have a very specific purpose, right? And so sitting in the dark it would be literally a nightmare for me. So I would never play or game master this game ever. Like it, and honestly, I will tell you right now, if you are a homeowner, like on it, I think I get, you know what? No, I was about to say in the forest, but we just had 1,000 homes burn in Colorado. I I fundamentally disagree with having a lighter as equipment for a tabletop role playing game. I just think it's outrageously foolish, right? So one, I'm not telling you not to play this game for that reason. I'm telling you that if you don't want to play this game because the candles freak you out, you are not alone, right? And I honestly believe any techno stan would never in their life have an open flame in their house just for scent or ambiance. The risk is so much higher than the reward. It's bad ROI. Okay, that's just my take. All right, so that's one reason why I'm telling you I don't play 10 candles. Here's the reason why I'll tell you you shouldn't play 10 candles. This is not, in my humble, I'll tell you why, in my humble opinion, you should not play 10 candles. And this is even more upsetting to me than the candles part. Okay, it's not a tabletop role playing game. Okay, once you get into this thing and read it the way I have, okay, what it really is it's an incredibly well crafted, um, it's an incredibly well crafted story game. Oh, story game, scary. Yes, it is scary, right? All right, here's the thing. I think one of the best story games. There's some good story games, right? Uh, I think it's called The Long Year is particularly one good one. There's a few others. There's some really dramatically powerful story games, right? Now here's the issue. Why is it a problem when a story game calls itself a tabletop role playing game? Well, so first of all, why is this not a tabletop role playing game? Well, the biggest issue here is it does not respect the title of game master. It takes the game master duties and it splits them up among all the players, right? So to me, if you're not honoring game master, you're not actually a tabletop role playing game. You're a story game, right? And a lot of people are like, "What's the difference? Why does it matter?" Because tabletop role playing games are dope and important and powerful because they've earned the name, okay? Story games, most people, if you even put that title on the game, will not play it, right? And the reality, just like a lot of, here's a good one, board games, co-op, lots of people love them. There's an entire group of people, and it's not small. It might be like 70% of all board gamers that won't touch a co-op, right? They're like, I'm not playing a game where I don't know if I won or lost, right? And there's a ton of people who are like, I'm not bothering with a story game, right? So I take beef when story games, right, which don't give game masters the power a game master should have, and then just split it up amongst the players, and you got a bunch of GMs sitting around, uh, and actually you don't have a player, or and you don't have a dungeon master, and and in the story game realm, they don't care because they don't respect either title. They're just that whatever they make up goes, right? But tabletop role playing games come from a history. They come from a legacy, and who started that legacy? Gary Gygax, and he talked a lot about dungeon masters. And game master is just the poor man's dungeon master, right? Okay, but it still is tied to dungeon master legacy. So the reality is you need to have that powerful, creative segment, right? And so I don't like it when story games roll up and steal the TTPRG honor, right? And it's not appropriate. It's not right. It's wrong. I stand against it, and I'll tell you right now, Ten Candles, in my humble opinion, is not a tabletop role-playing game. It is a incredibly well-crafted story game. Now, why does it matter? Here's another one. Here's another one. Okay, so let me help you understand this, right? So, why does it matter what a thing is called? Well, here's a good example. What's the difference between a Larper and an actor, right? Well, if okay, I'm incredibly blessed. I actually know a woman whose daughter is on Broadway right now, right? She is a Broadway actress, sings and dances the whole nine, right? She's an actress, right? I also know a Larper. They are not the same thing. They have not invested and done the same level of rigor, right? They haven't, right? And, and so for the Larper to say, I'm an actor, are you? Right? Does anybody come out to see you LARP? Right? I don't think so, right? Or maybe, you know, when you go to a play, the audience is a ratio of 10, or is probably a ratio of 20 to 1. 20 audience members to each one person in the play, right? You ever get those kind of ratios at a LARP? No, you do not, right? Because a LARPer is not the same thing as an actor. Story games are not tabletop role playing games, and I will not sit by and watch as story games sidle up and pretend to be tabletop role playing games. Read this thing. I did. This is not a tabletop role playing game. This is a classic story game. And the reason it's not titled and marketed as a story game is story game industry does not have respect at the macro level. And it frustrates me that rather than build it, they just steal it. And I think that's what's happening here. I stand against Ten Candles. I think that's two reasons that a techno stan or anyone who truly loves the legacy of Gary Gygax won't touch this game with a 10-foot pole. pun intended. That's my opinion. Okay, in my humble opinion, anybody who loves tabletop role playing games and would like to keep their home like in a state that does not that is not a pile of ash should not play this game, in my humble opinion. Of course, I, I, I'm not saying your house will become a pile of ash. I'm just saying that if you don't play this game, you have a better chance that it won't, in my humble opinion. All that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.